The hunter, aristocratic family, who was reborn in the village has a sect called Seven Xuanmen next to it, and a black child named Hanli has been born in the neighboring village. On this day, my father and I, who were still hunting in the mountains, suddenly saw a big snake descending from the sky. Fuyunzi. Bloodline Jiao. Where are you running? Hand over the inner pill. Master, spare you from dying. Dad. Snake bile is a good thing. I am an ordinary physical practitioner. Before the age of 300, one must become the toughest person in the entire Tiannan region. This book is also called My Master is the Qiong Old Monster, the True Man of the Moon Covering Sect, and The Immortal Cultivation version of Infernal Affairs. First, undercover the Black Sha sect, then undercover the 6 demon schools. I am the first hero in the defense of the Yu Kingdom's cultivation world. Xian Yu said, Senior brother, you still have to be tough. Mo Jiao said, don't fight anymore. I'll take it. I'll take it this time. P.S. According to the old rules of Guanshan, the strong never cheat, with small opportunities, no big cheats. The complete version of Legend of the Bloody Marquis of Qin with millions of words is now available. Please rest assured to collect it. Keywords of the novel. Mortal. Tiannan First Body Repair No Pop-Up Window, Mortal. Tiannan First Body Repair Complete Collection Download TXT, Mortal. Tiannan First Body Repair Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. There is a Jiangjia village in front of the mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. There is a Jiangjia village in front of the mountain. In front of a misty green mountain, there are several villages of different sizes. In the village, a little smoke slowly drifted up, blending with the thin mist in front of the mountain. In the early morning, just as the sky was brightening, the young Jiang Chuan followed his father Jiang Dashan into the mountain to check if there was any harvest from the animal trap placed yesterday. This is a major matter related to the livelihood of the family, which cannot be ignored by Jiang Chuan and his father. If you can catch a muntjac or a deer by chance, you can go to Qingniu town 30 miles away to exchange for a family of 4 for more than a month's worth of food. Although Jiang Chuan, who was only 10 years old, appeared a bit short behind his father, it was because his father Jiang Dashan was tall and sturdy. In fact, Jiang Chuan was much taller and more robust than his peers in the village. As a generation hunter in Jiangjia village, Jiang Chuan has been practicing some rural skills with his father since childhood, and his father's hunting skills are also considered advanced. Therefore, unlike ordinary villagers who do not see oil stars all year round, the Jiangchuan family still often has some mountain chickens, wild rabbits, and other things to do tooth-making ceremonies. Thanks to these wild chickens and rabbits, both Jiang Chuan and his elder brother Jiang Dai, who is 5 years older than him, are taller and more sturdy than their village playmates, unlike their skinny and bony appearance. Jiang Chuan followed his father with a short gun of his own iron-headed old oil wood, walking briskly towards the mountains, his gaze revealing a calmness far beyond that of his peers. Having this composure is not due to innate wisdom or exceptional intelligence, but simply because one has already lived for half a lifetime in their past life. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, they had come to this ancient world with beautiful mountains and rivers, becoming a baby of the same name and surname in the Orion family. The young body carries a big soul and cannot bear the heavy responsibility of traveling. Helpless, Jiang Chuan has to settle down and grow up slowly in this village. My father Jiang Dashan, as a hunter for generations, has a few skills in the countryside, even though he has never seen his father engage in combat with anyone. But when following my father into the mountains, I occasionally encountered some wild beasts and wolves. My father played with an iron gun, but he could barely handle it, and he considered himself a skilled hand who could easily get close to 3 or 5 people. Jiang Chuan watched as he grew up little by little, so he had to follow his father's footsteps and learn these rural skills. Speaking of which, besides the usual stabs, picks, sweeps, and smashes, my father only knows one move to knock down the spurs, which is a move similar to a revolver. I used to use names like Jiangjia, just like my older brother Jiangjia. Fortunately, my father changed his personality after I was born and felt that his child couldn't be named so foolishly anymore. At the cost of 2 wild rabbits, I asked LV Xiaocai from Qingyou town to give me a decent name. In fact, the word big has been removed, which sounds much better. It makes Jiang Dashan unable to close his mouth. My 15-year-old brother Jiang Dai has just married this year. His wife is the youngest daughter of Han Laotu's family in the neighboring Han family village. This little girl is the daughter of the old Han family, with 6 older brothers above her. However, the girl is good-looking and both families are quite satisfied. As he grew older, Jiangchuan gradually gained some understanding of the world outside of Jiangjia village. These several villages near his home were all under the jurisdiction of Jingzhou, and a small town next to him was called Qingyou town. Jingzhou is one of the 13 provinces of the state of Yu. As for how large the state of Yu is, Jiangchuan has no concept, and my father Jiang Dashan also has no concept. Later, Jiangchuan learned that there were people from the martial arts world who came and went, and these people were not far from Jiangchuan's life. Not far from Qingyou town, there is a high mountain called Saixia Mountain, and there is a martial arts sect called the 7 Profound Gates located on the mountain. In addition to the 7 Profound Gates, the Wild Wolf Valley has recently gathered a group of bandits called the Wild Wolf Gang, including many martial arts experts. After learning about this information, Jiangchuan felt even more uneasy and familiar. With a slap in the head, he realized that this was the world from The Legend of Immortal Cultivation, the founder of the mortal abortion in his previous life. However, based solely on this information, Jiangchuan cannot be certain until a few days ago when his father returned from Hanjia village and mentioned at the dinner table. "Hey, kid, you don't know. Today, I went to the Han family village to deliver a wild rabbit to my old relative's house, and coincidentally, I happened to have his second wife Han give birth. I went to his house to take a look, guess what? He gave birth to a chubby little boy. You haven't seen it yet, it's really dark, like the little iron egg in the carbon stove of blacksmith Chen. I told Han Lauer to name him Han Taidan, but he still doesn't want to. I have to find that old Zhang who knows a few words to give me a name, as if I don't know a few words. That old Zhang didn't want to pick it up yet, so I chopped off 2 rabbit legs for him and he gave him a name. What's your name, Han Li? If I had to say it, why don't you call it Han Taidan? Upon seeing this, Jiang Mu smiled and cursed, saying, You are also an unorthodox person, but after spending a few days outside and recognizing a few words, you feel embarrassed to point fingers at others. Our Chuaner's name was given by you when you went to the city to find that LV Xiaocai. If you ask me, it's much better than your name Jiang Dashan. Speaking of which, Han Lauer's family is probably the 4th child now, but life has been tough enough. If you ask me, they all live in front of a mountain and are in-laws. If you have oil stars in the future, you have to think more about them. Jiang Dashan picked up the rice from the bowl while nodding in response. Isn't that right? There are 2 boys and a girl in the head. Han Lauer is also an inexperienced person who relies on a small amount of land and has a poor financial situation. It is not easy to support a large family. But it's Han Lao-san. Don't be fooled, he's really good at eating in Qingyou town. Every time I go to the city to deliver mountain goods and game, that guy would have a drink with me. I heard he even became a steward this year, and it's so beautiful listening to the family background of his parents. Jiangchuan didn't even know that he had truly traveled to the world of mortal cultivation and lived in the village next to Han Tianzuan. He even became Han Tianzuan's biological family by chance. When it comes to seniority, my elder brother married Han Tianzuan's aunt, and I have become Han Tianzuan's uncle-in-law. However, Jiangchuan doesn't have the courage to be Han Tianzuan's uncle in marriage. You should know that the mortal cultivation tradition is also called the Daozu's recultivation tradition, and the Tuanzhan engine cultivation plan. Jiangchuan secretly thought that being too close to Han Tianzuan would not be beneficial. Speaking of which, I originally thought this was a world of martial arts and planned to learn martial arts to dominate the martial arts world. Now it seems that I am even more hopeful that I can possess spiritual roots, so that I can become an immortal who can fly to heaven and escape to earth, and live 1,000 years longer. But the food needs to be eaten step by step, and even immortals need to be cultivated step by step. At present, I am just a child from a mountain village. I have not even learned my father's style of inverted spurs, let alone cultivating immortals. However, Jiang Chuan has already made up his mind to go to the Seven Xuanmen sect early to learn martial arts, and then find an opportunity to visit the immortal fate. Now that Han Tianzuan has just been born, it is estimated that the famous teacher Mo Juren was only around 20 years old. After all, when he had a showdown with Han Li, he claimed to be 30.7 years old, and at that time Han Li was already 14 or 15 years old. It seems that if we wait for Mo Juren to enter the 7 profound schools, we may still have 8 or 9 years left. If we have spiritual roots and are almost 20 years old in 8 or 9 years, then we won't make it. So Jiang Chuan plans to rush to the 7 profound gates as soon as possible. After all, with the physique he has trained with his father in the mountains since childhood, passing the introductory test of the 7 profound gates is generally not a problem. That evening, after the family had dinner, Jiang Dashan leaned against the stone mill in the small courtyard, looking at the starry sky, humming an unpleasant tune while smoking welding cigarettes. Jiang's mother sat on a small bamboo stool by the wall, making clothes for her eldest brother's upcoming baby. Jiang Chuan seemed to have a heavy heart and came to the small courtyard. He sat down beside the stone mill, tidying up his father's old tobacco leaves while probing and saying, "Father, I want to go out and take a look. Go to the 7 profound gates and learn martial arts." Upon hearing these words, Jiang Dashan still looked up at the starry sky, but smiled knowingly at the corner of his mouth before saying, "Hey, how old are you, kid? You can't stay in the village anymore. What's the use of learning excellent martial arts? Isn't it good to just stay in the village like this?" Jiang Chuan held his cheek and said, "It's not bad either, I just feel that, how to put it, it's too peaceful. I think the outside world may not be good, but it must be big and exciting. So I think I should go out and take a look." Jiang Dashan straightened his waist from the stone mill, then knocked his cigarette gun on the grinding plate, and then said, "Chuaner, as a father, I know that you have been intelligent since childhood and have many ideas. Unlike your older brother, he is not very open-minded. Father, at your age, also yearns for the outside world. But the difference between us father and son is that at that time, I didn't have the courage to leave Jiangjia village. It wasn't until I was 16 that I went out to explore for a few years. At that time, my father also considered joining a prestigious sect like the Seven Xuanmen, but because he was too old, he could only find some small sects to join. Later on, I joined the Iron Spear Society, a small sect with less than 1,000 members. At that time, I thought I was from the martial arts world and didn't learn much kung fu. I only knew how to wield the iron spear and show off all day long. Later on, the usually arrogant gang leader offended a passing expert, and the gang leaders and helmsmen of the Iron Spear Society were killed and dispersed after 3 strikes, resulting in a group of gang members being killed and fleeing injured. As a father, I have just returned to Jiangjia village and continue to take over the hunting business from your grandfather. The martial arts world outside is indeed exciting, but during those years of wandering around as a father, I understood a truth. Strong has its own strong hands, and there are also wicked people who grind them. Those who become masters here must also be grandsons in other places, with no end in sight. Do you really want to venture into the outside world? Jiang Chuan listened to his father's story and didn't expect his father, who always liked to make jokes with others, to have such an experience when he was young. However, since I am not a child, how can I easily change things that I have already made up my mind? I immediately said. My father knows many truths, but I think I have to go through them myself to understand them. So I still have to leave and go to the outside world. Zhang's mother beside her said. Dad, if you haven't made a name for yourself outside and come back feeling disheartened, do you have to think that others can't do it either? Look at these nearby villages, which child can match our Chuaner? Chuaner is so intelligent and knows how to advance and retreat. Maybe he can make a name for himself outside. Why bother to stop him? Upon hearing these words, Jiangjia smiled contentedly and said, Yes, I can't say it, you two women. But you can go to the 7 profound gates to become a disciple, but you need to learn how to reverse the spurs before you can. When you go out, you must have a unique skill that you can handle to avoid being laughed at. Speaking of which, my child, if I hadn't returned to this Jiangjia village, I wouldn't have been able to get such a good aunt like you, wouldn't I? Upon hearing these words, Zhang's mother only laughed and cursed. You're just not good at it. Pack up and rest, you guys still have to go early tomorrow to collect the traps. The new book is on its way, welcome fellow travelers from all walks of life to collect and vote. Guanshan has completed a 1,000,000-word novel called The Legend of the Bloody Marquis in Qin Dynasty. Please rest assured to collect it, and we also welcome you to read the old book. Goodbye Guanshan. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Escaping Bloodline Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Escaping Bloodline Dragon. The next morning, Jiang Chuan hurriedly entered the mountains behind his father, dressed in linen and coarse cloth, carrying his iron-headed old oil-wood short gun. After a thorough inspection, several traps near the entrance of the mountain forest remained unprofitable as usual. There were too many villagers in this area, and wild animals often took refuge. After tidying up the trap again, Jiang Chuan and his father continued to walk deep into the mountains and forests. Chuaner, go north along this path, check the situation of those traps, and help your father check the traps to the south. If there are wild beasts trapped in it, don't deal with them rashly, come and call me first. Jiang Chuan nodded to make it clear, then walked towards the small path to the north on his own. At the same time, a great war is raging in the towering sky. Jingzhou is located in the southwest of Yu Kingdom, close to the 800 mountains of Yuanwu Kingdom and the barbarians. After crossing the 800 mountains, it becomes a large river in Yuanwu Kingdom, the Panlong River. There is a dragon that has been practicing for many years hidden in the Panlong River. It uses the surging water to bring disaster to its side. Even cultivators find it difficult to cross the Panlong River. However, today the evil dragon in the Panlong River caught its way and was trapped in the large formation by 2 cultivators who seem to have high magical power, using dragon-shaped grass as bait. Looking at the struggling dragons and monsters in the formation, both of them were dressed in blue and white Taoist robes with long beards and floating hands, as if they were immortals. The characters spoke. Thank you very much, Senior Brother Luyunzi, for your help this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to defeat this evil dragon with my cultivation in the early stage of the poor Dao Jiedan. The old Taoist named Luyunzi immediately stroked his long beard and smiled, saying, It's also because Junior Brother Fuyunzi's Gung Jin trapped dragon formation is very exquisite. Otherwise, even if Brother can restrain this evil beast, he will definitely not be able to take it down. Unexpectedly, this bloodline dragon has been hiding in the Panlong River for many years, causing trouble and breaking through into a 5th-level demon beast. With the body of a dragon and poison skills, it is extremely domineering and far stronger than its peers. The slightly younger Fuyunzi immediately politely said, Where are you talking, Senior Brother? My non-mainstream formation has taken advantage of attribute restraint, which is why I have trapped this blood thread dragon. However, this colleague's strength is indeed strong. If it weren't for my senior brother, he would be one of the top cultivators in the middle stage of the Qingshu sect's alchemy cultivation. His abilities and supernatural powers would probably not have been as smooth today. Upon hearing the words of Fuyunzi and Luyunzi, it turned out that these two were 2 cultivators of the Qingshu sect of the Yu State Immortal Cultivation sect, one of whom had a mid-cultivation level in the Jidan period. As Fuyunzi released his magic weapon Qingjun's sword and used the formation to suppress his desire to kill the bloodline dragon, he listened to his senior brother Luyunzi's words. The bloodline dragon has been trapped this time. Junior brother, don't forget our agreement. Upon hearing these words, Fuyunzi felt very sorry. If it were true, even his own brother should be clear in his accounts, let alone his senior brother. I spent all my money to set up this gung gold-trapped dragon formation in order to capture this blood thread Jiao, and in addition, I spent a huge amount of money to hire senior brother Luyunzi. Now, in my storage bag, I am completely clean. At this point, Fuyunzi couldn't help but increase his mana output, controlling the Qingjun sword to completely kill the bloodline dragon. Like the dragon and snake, the 7-inch mark is the most crucial. Now, although the bloodline dragon has successfully transformed into a 7-inch scale, it is still the most vulnerable part of its body. Under the control of Fuyunzi, Qingjun's sword crazily slashed towards the scales of the blood thread dragon, and soon it was already flesh and blood. In the formation, the bloodline dragon rolled and howled wildly, with both eyes almost blinded by stabs. Seeing that his family was already in dire straits, the bloodline dragon immediately spat out its Jiaodan as if desperately. Using Jiaodan as the foundation, he used the blood vessel spell and blood dragon strike, suddenly unleashing a huge power that opened a 3-foot square gap in the gung gold-trapped dragon formation arranged by Fuyunzi. As time went by, the bloodline dragon immediately shrank its body and ran away desperately. The floating cloud and flowing cloud, who had reacted on this side, immediately tried to stop the bloodline dragon with flying sword magic weapons. I saw that Lu Yunzi's Qingsong sword was the first to block the blood thread Jiao's Jiaodan within the Gung Jin trapped dragon formation, while Fu Yunzi's Qingjun sword was tightly biting behind the blood thread Jiao. Helpless, the blood thread dragon had no choice but to carry the sword of floating cloud with its flesh and blood, and then use its escape technique to escape towards the direction of the 800 mountains of the barbarian tribe. Upon seeing this, Fuyunzi quickly said, "Senior brother, please guard the formation and Jiaodan here. Let's see if senior brother goes and takes him." However, the dragon clan's escape technique of the blood thread dragon was not an easy task. Although Fuyunzi was a cultivator who formed a pill, he could not easily catch up and could only follow the direction to catch up. On the other side, the bloodline dragon, which suffered heavy injuries one after another, with its scales destroyed and its body pierced, was already on the brink of death after performing the forbidden escape technique. When flying above a green mountain, seeing that he had already escaped the pursuit of the floating clouds, he could no longer support it and fell to the ground with a loud bang, creating a pit in the mountain. If it weren't for its cultivation into the body of a dragon, capable of being big and small, able to rise and hide, and shrinking its body to about 1 zhang during its escape, if it weren't for its massive body that used to be tens of zhang, only half of the mountain would have been smashed and collapsed by it. During the descent, the bloodline dragon used its last bit of strength to perform the dragon hidden technique, concealing all of its breath. Jiang Chuan stood there dumbfounded, looking at the blood-red dragon that had fallen from the sky in front of him from an unknown height. He couldn't help but say 10,000 words of buying and selling, drifting by in his heart. Just as I was about to examine the trap in front of me, this dragon descended from the sky and hit me in front of me. If I hadn't slowed down a step and hadn't had time to come forward and examine the trap, I'm afraid it would have turned into a puddle of flesh by now. Wiping away the cold sweat from his forehead with his cuffs, Jiang Chuan cursed inwardly, "Do you understand throwing objects from high altitude? This will catch you and send you to prison to pick up soap." The sound of falling to the ground alarmed Jiang Dashan, the father who was observing the trap in the distance, and he only heard him shout, "Chuaner, what happened? Are there rocks rolling down? Are you okay on this side?" Jiang Chuan looked at the dragon, which was covered in injuries and even had its body pierced. He didn't dare to bet on whether it was alive or dead, so he had to slowly retreat, probably startling the dragon. However, before Jiang Chuan could take any action, it was unknown whether Jiang Dashan's shout had startled the dragon or something. The dragon suddenly opened its eyes, which had already been heavily injured by Qin Jun's sword, as if it had returned to light. A mouthful of blood-gray poisonous gas spewed out from between his teeth, but he didn't even have the strength to open his mouth. However, this blood thread dragon is ultimately a 5th-level demon beast, and even the slightest venom squeezed out from its teeth cannot be resisted by an ordinary person in Jiangchuan. Seeing the poisonous gas diffuse in front of him, Jiang Chuan's head suddenly became dizzy and his mind swelled. However, under the constant fright and a hint of ferocity in his heart, he was stimulated. However, Jiang Chuan twisted his waist and exerted force from his heels, penetrating his back and waist. He used the inverted spurs that he had never been able to use before, and his long spear fiercely stabbed the severely damaged eyes of the blood thread Jiao. With a hissing sound, the long spear pierced into the already damaged eyes of the blood thread dragon. The blood thread dragon seemed to lose its composure with slightly unwilling eyes, and it was unclear whether it had already lost its demon pill, exhausted its last bit of vitality and died, or was crushed to death by the last straw of Jiangchuan. And Jiangchuan also collapsed backward straight, with a terrifying pale face. At this moment, Father Jiang Dashan rushed over and saw the scene before him, but his eyes were wide open and he didn't care about the dragon in the distant pit, only worried about the safety of his own son. Fortunately, as an old hunter, Jiang Dashan's instinct made him understand that his son, who had a pale face, must have been poisoned, and the poisonous gas in his vicinity may not have dissipated. Fortunately, Jiang Dashan was in the upwind direction. He folded off a few dense tree trunks and used them as a fan to fan down the wind for a while before finally rushing towards Jiang Chuan. As Jiang Chuan's lips turned purple and his face turned pale, and he looked at the unknown dragon snake in front of him, Jiang Dashan, who had little knowledge, had to deal with ordinary venomous snakes in the same way. He quickly took out several herbs that he had prepared to detoxify the mountains and wild to Jiang Chuan, but to no avail. Jiang Dashan waited anxiously while pondering countermeasures, when suddenly he muttered to himself. Snake venom. Yes. Snake gallbladder. Snake gallbladder. After speaking, Jiang Dashan came to the 7-inch hole of the blood thread dragon and penetrated deep into it, constantly touching it. If it weren't for the fact that the body of the dragon had already been pierced, let alone a mortal like Jiang Dashan, even a cultivator during the foundation building period may not have been able to break through a single penny. After a moment, Jiang Dashan finally found something the size of an egg, like a blood-colored crystal ball. Although he didn't know if the object in front of him was the location of the dragon snake's gallbladder, based on Jiang Dashan's experience, the snake's mammalian gallbladder was located in this position. Unable to resist Jiang Dashan's hesitation, he immediately stuffed the egg-sized blood-colored crystal ball into Jiang Chuan's mouth. As soon as the blood-colored crystal ball entered the mouth of Jiang Chuan, it felt the bloodline dragon poison gas inside its body, as if it were mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. The poison gas quickly dissipated, and the blood-colored crystal ball slowly melted and integrated into Jiang Chuan's body. Jiang Dashan didn't know that with his simple concept of dragons and snakes, he had actually found the snake gallbladder of this bloodline dragon that had transformed into a dragon gallbladder, and ultimately saved his own son's life. Jiang Dashan watched as the green color on Jiang Chuan's face was dissipating, and his heart was at ease. He didn't dare to stay any longer, so he hastily buried the 1 zhang long body of the bloodline dragon and ran back to the village with Jiang Chuan on his back. But the father and son didn't know that when they returned to the village, a white-bearded Taoist with a fairy-like demeanor flew away from the air, cursing and cursing. This cunning and wicked dragon, let the Taoist catch you and must skin you. However, Fuyunzi did not know that he had just brushed past the body of the bloodline dragon, and all of this was due to the dragon hidden technique used by the bloodline dragon when it fell, making it impossible for Fuyunzi to trace his whereabouts. Returning home, Jiang Chuan felt like he had a dream, where he would be in flames for a moment and then fall into an ice cave for another. The repeated torment almost shattered Jiang Chuan's thinking, and in the end, he persevered with the fierce force that stabbed the blood thread dragon to death. After waking up, Jiang Chuan found a thick layer of black substance emanating from his body, which had a foul odor. He immediately rushed to the small ditch in front of the village and fiercely washed it clean. After rubbing these black substances clean in the river, Jiang Chuan finally remembered it. When he ran out of his home, his body was very light, as if he could leap a foot away in just one step. Returning home, I asked my father about my condition after falling into a coma, and it was only then that I realized that I had probably swallowed the red dragon's gallbladder. I was just pulled back from the highly poisonous ghost gate in my body, as if I had completed the legendary process of washing tendons and changing marrow. I believe the effect of this treasure like the dragon gall is definitely extraordinary. The new book is on its way. Thank you all for your collection and voting. Let's make a wish and hope to make it on the new book list. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Entering the 7 Profound Gates for the first time. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Entering the 7 Profound Gates for the first time, Jiang Chuan, who had no common sense of cultivation, only vaguely realized that he might have gone through a process of washing his tendons and transforming his essence. But in fact, as one of the essence of the whole Jiaolong's body, the Jiaodan of the blood dragon is absolutely no less valuable than the inner pill of the blood dragon. This bloodline dragon's gallbladder not only cleanses the tendons and marrow, but also greatly strengthens the body. It is more immune to most toxins, weaker than the bloodline dragon poison, and even the land immortals during the Dan formation period are eager to pursue this item. In fact, as a mortal, Jiang Chuan did not have the ability to refine the gallbladder of the bloodline dragon, but by chance, he was first poisoned by the bloodline dragon. The bloodline venom of the dragon originated from the dragon gallbladder, which interacts with each other to integrate into the body of the river, helping it complete the process of washing tendons and improving marrow. This time, Jiang Chuan finally understood the great opportunity of his own blessings and misfortunes. If it weren't for his father Jiang Dashan's decisive decision, he was afraid that he had already died and his soul had been destroyed. What else would he talk about cultivating immortality and immortality? However, when Jiang Chuan looked left and right by the river, he didn't notice that he had turned white. Shouldn't washing tendons and marrow make him turn white? It seems that what I heard before was just a rumor. Washing tendons and marrow is related to skin color, and Jiang Chuan couldn't help but laugh. Fortunately, he already has a normal skin color and doesn't have the need to turn white. If it were Han Laoma, the demand would be huge. That evening, my father Jiang Dashan called Jiang Chuan to the small ditch at the entrance of the village, found a piece of blue stone, and sat on it. He said earnestly to Jiang Chuan, "Chuaner, you have been intelligent since childhood and should not have spoken much for your father. But as it concerns the lives of our entire family, as a father, I still want to give you another warning. That bloody dragon has been buried by my father. Only heaven knows and earth knows about this matter. You and my father and son both know about it. You can't tell anyone again, and your mother can't do it either. You should have heard from LV Xiozai in the city about the principle of blaming others. No matter what kind of gods and monsters that bloody dragon is, it is not something that people like us can participate in. From now on, this matter has never happened, do you understand?" Jiang Chuan nodded solemnly. After experiencing today's situation, he also understood that although his father was just an ordinary person who had been wandering the world for a few days, he was a very wise person. "Father, rest assured that nothing has happened. I just fell off the mountain today and was scared." Father Jiang Dashan nodded in satisfaction and then said, "Since you have already mastered the skill of using the reverse spur technique, if you want to go to the 7 Profound Gates to become a disciple, then go ahead. It is also the time for the 7 Profound Gates to recruit disciples." Jiang Chuan didn't speak, just nodded, and then the father and son sat together by the river, gazing at the quiet night sky, silent for a long time. The next morning, Jiang Chuan packed his bags, but in reality, He only packed some dry food and 2 pieces of dried rabbit meat, and then went to Qingyo town under his father's escort. Originally, my father had already made an agreement with Han San, a chubby man from Qingyo town, to send Jiang Chuan to participate in the introductory test of the 7 profound gates. There is only one road from Jiangjia village to Qingyo town. Jiang Chuan used to follow his father to the city to sell mountain goods and game, but he didn't feel like he was away from home. However, Jiang Chuan understood in his heart that no one could say for sure what kind of scenery it would be like to leave. I don't know if I have a spiritual root or not. If I have a spiritual root but my family doesn't, I'm afraid that once I go, it will be like Han Laoma, separated from the mortal world. After entering the city, in the Qingyo restaurant, Jiang Chuan and his father saw Han San, a chubby man with a shiny face, but they saw him bow and say, "My dear family. I heard that my 7th sister has already had some movement in her belly. This is Jiang Chuan, it hasn't been long since I last saw you. How come you've grown taller again? Look, it's so sturdy." Jiang Dashan immediately said. Yes. The elderly in the village said they were pregnant. Don't forget to have a wedding banquet then. I have to trouble you again this time. Chuaner, I haven't seen you Han San Gu yet. Jiang Chuan immediately said with complete etiquette. Have you met Han San Gu? Thank you very much, Brother Han, for your help this time. Han San, the chubby man, saw the situation and smiled happily, immediately saying. They are all in-laws, how can we say that? A robust child like Chuaner, the 7 profound men cannot even beg for it. My dear family, don't worry, just hand over the Sichuan brothers to me. Tomorrow morning, there will be a gatekeeper to take them up the mountain for assessment. Jiang Dashan nodded and then called Jiang Chuan aside to explain a few words. Chuaner, being outside is not as good as being in the village. When doing things, one should know how to advance or retreat, and leave a way for oneself in everything. Father doesn't know much, you'll have to rely on yourself in the future. Jiang Chuan nodded solemnly. Although he was reincarnated, he still truly felt his father's care, and couldn't help but feel a bit moist in his eyes. After his father left, Jiang Chuan stayed at Qingyo restaurant and time quickly arrived on the 2nd day. The next morning, under the escort of a guardian surnamed Gu, Jiang Chuan and a group of children went to the 7 gates of Caixia Mountain. The road to Caixia Mountain, although it is a mountain road, is very flat and wide. Just relying on this mountain road alone is enough to see that the 7 Xuanmen have regained their vitality in recent years, gradually restoring some of the prestige of the former first sect in Jingzhou. The guardian surnamed Gu placed a group of young people outside the front of the 7 profound gates on a wide mountain range, where hundreds of children had already gathered. But I saw a slender man in brocade, who looked about 30 years old, standing on a cliff. He said a few words to the people around him, and then shouted loudly. Boys, I am Wang Lu, the new head of the 7 profound sect. Next, you will undergo the introductory assessment of the 7 profound sect. The assessment process is very simple. Before sunset, pass through this mountain range, reach the eastern bone refining cliff, climb to the top of the peak to pass, and you can enter the 7 Xuanmen as an inner disciple. Listen to my command, let's go. With the command of King Lu, hundreds of children rushed out like wild horses, and Jiang Chuan was no exception. The distance from here to the bone refining cliff is not very close. It is not easy for children in their early 20s to cross the mountains and thorns before sunset, let alone climb to the bottom of the bone refining cliff. Normally, this kind of assessment should allocate physical strength reasonably and slowly plan for it, but these half-aged children do not have such a mindset, only wanting to be as ahead as possible and see some opportunities. As for Jiang Chuan, since being washed by the snake bile of the blood thread dragon, his physique has far exceeded before. Not to mention that there are still 2.5 hours before sunset, even within an hour, he has confidence to reach the bone refining cliff. Therefore, Jiang Chuan did not retain his physical strength, but quickly disappeared from the dust. After all, Jiang Chuan understood a truth that under the same conditions, what kind of strength naturally has what kind of treatment. If you want to enter the core of the seven mysteries and cultivate the most powerful martial arts in one step, so that you can search for immortal fate as soon as possible, you must demonstrate the necessary strength. As for whether it will attract the jealousy of the young people behind him, Jiang Chuan is not worried. He is a mediocre person who is not envied, let alone the vast majority of them who cannot enter the inner gates of the Seven Xuanmen to cultivate superior martial arts. As expected, when Wang Lu, who had left the crowd behind for many years in Jiangchuan, ran into the mountains in a flash, he said to the several hall masters beside him on the cliff. "Not bad, at such a fast pace, it's clear that the bones are good. It seems there are still some good seedlings this year." On the other side, amidst the mountains and forests, Jiang Chuan had already distanced himself from the children behind him. After passing through this wilderness, there was a strange and rugged mountain range. In the mountains, there are rugged terrain and occasional thorns blocking the way. Even a slight mistake can cause scratches on the soles of the feet or legs. Although Jiang Chuan's physique and five senses have greatly improved after washing his tendons and marrow, he ultimately lacks any martial arts skills except for one move, reverse spur. Traveling on these mountain roads, it is inevitable that he will be scratched. At this moment, Jiang Chuan was surprised to find that if his legs were slightly injured by thorns, even if a little blood seeped out, it would quickly heal. Only when he was scratched deeper by a strange stone once did he fail to heal. It seems that under the action of the Bloodline Dragon Gall, my body's recovery ability has been greatly enhanced, and some minor wounds can quickly heal. However, this matter can only be known to oneself, so Jiang Chuan no longer runs recklessly, but carefully avoids some thorns and strange stones, so as not to be discovered by the disciples who follow and protect the Seven Xuanmen in the distance. After carefully passing through the thorny forest, there was a relatively flat valley. Looking at the bone-refining cliff in the distance, the river accelerated immediately and finally reached the bottom of the cliff in an hour. At this moment, the child closest to Jiang Chuan only ran a little over half of the distance. Looking at the empty bone-refining cliff, Jiang Chuan immediately began to climb up with his hands and feet. The rapid speed surprised the upper sect leader Wang and the other hall leaders, but they saw the sect leader Wang Lu waving towards the guardian surnamed Gu and then saying, "Xiao Gu, what's the origin of this child? His bones are quite strong." The guardian surnamed Gu saw the leader calling him and quickly ran over, saying, "Report back to the leader. This child is from Jiangjia village in Qingyou town, and his family comes from a hunting background." The younger one also saw it rolling and beating in the mountains since childhood, with good muscles and bones, which brought them to participate in the entry-level assessment. The guardian surnamed Gu is actually someone who can speak. In a few words, it seems like he has discovered a talented and beautiful jade for the sect. However, Wang Lu, the leader of the sect, has just taken office and his foundation is unstable. He also needs such talented individuals to enrich the seven profound schools. He immediately said, "Hunter background. No wonder you can refine such muscles and bones. Xiaogu, you did a good job. Come and listen to me in the future." The guardian surnamed Gu was immediately overjoyed and knelt down, saying, "Thank you very much for the promotion, leader." On the other hand, amidst everyone's words, Jiang Chuan had already climbed halfway up the mountain. With his keen senses, Jiang Chuan could always find a suitable place to settle on the mountain wall, so his climbing speed was very fast. Finally, when Jiang Chuan grabbed the cliff and climbed up with all his might, the sunlight still hung high in the sky. After some calculation, he resisted for less than an hour and a half. However, the 1.5-hour journey was indeed uncomfortable, and Jiang Chuan, who had just climbed the bone-refining cliff, was also lying on the ground panting heavily. At this moment, Headmaster Wang Lu walked over with someone and said with satisfaction, "What's the name of the kid from Jiangjia village?" Upon seeing this, Jiang Chuan immediately disregarded the pain and fatigue on his body and stood up to salute, saying, Jiangjia village in Jiangchuan, pay respects to Master Wang. Upon seeing this, Wang Lu nodded and then said. Not bad, it's a bit polite. Can you recognize the characters Jiangchuan should reach? Good news to Master Wang. I have learned a few big characters from my father since I was young. Later, I went to the city to sell mountain goods and game, and often consulted the town scholars. I can recognize the commonly used characters. Wang Lu listened to the 10-year-old child's words with reason and evidence, and his heart became increasingly satisfied. He immediately said. Good. Not bad. Not bad. Xiao Gu, protect the Dharma, and apply the wound medicine to Xiao Jiang. Rest for a moment and wait for the young man below to complete the assessment before calculating. Gu, the protector of the surname, didn't miss the opportunity to show himself. He immediately stepped forward and took out the best healing medicine from his body, applying it to the unhealed wound on Jiang Chuan's leg. Upon seeing this, Jiang Chuan secretly thought to himself that it seemed that no one in the martial arts world was an idiot. The words and actions of this Wang leader were all actions to win people's hearts, and he truly deserves to be a superior. Jiang Chuan rested for an hour, and finally the afterglow of the sun disappeared on the mountain. Today's assessment also came to an end. But when Wang nodded to the protector surnamed Gu, Gu immediately announced. The entry-level assessment has ended, and a total of 9 people have passed the assessment. Among them, 8 have entered the 100 Forging Hall and become disciples of our inner sect. Jiang Chuan took the lead in climbing the bone refining cliff and performed outstandingly. He entered the 7 Wonders Hall and became a core disciple, practicing the unique skills of his sect update instructions. Starting from tomorrow, updates will be made every day at 12.00 and 18.00. Previously, Guanshan was updated at midnight, but I thought that fellow Taoists should not stay up late to cultivate immortality. Therefore, I decided to switch to the normal daytime time for updates. Thank you for voting and collecting. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Iron Wall Decision, Seeking Collection and Voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Iron Wall Decision, Seeking Collection and Voting, Caixia Mountain, 7 Profound Gates. At the core location of the 7 Mysteries, it is the place where the disciples of the 7 Ju Hall live and practice martial arts. Jiang Chuan sat up from the wooden bed and looked at the wound on his calf. It had healed, but there were still some scars. I have been in the 7 Profound Gates for 3 days now. After entering, the sect leader Wang Lu checked my bones and was very satisfied. It is said to be very suitable for practicing martial arts horizontally, and it is mentioned that he will hire an elderly elder with high martial arts skills to take him as his disciple. During this period, let yourself first learn some basic meridians from the teacher in the 7 Wonders Hall, and you can go to the Cangong Pavilion to see if there are any suitable martial arts for yourself. There are no benefits in the world that come in vain. One reason why one can receive such treatment is that although one's talent may not be stunning, it is far superior to that of their peers. Secondly, it is because the 7 profound men have been trapped here for a long time and have not received any stunning disciples. Wang Lu, who has been appointed as a new official with 3 fires, regards revitalizing the 7 profound schools as an inescapable responsibility, and therefore wants to cultivate himself as one of the seeds to help the 7 profound schools return to their peak. However, although Jiang Chuan saw all of this in his eyes, he did not have any aversion. After all, why not strive for better cultivation? During these 3 days, Jiang Chuan not only went to the 7 Ju Hall to be taught martial arts basics such as reading, deciphering, 8 meridians, and acupoints by the core disciples, but also received clothing tokens belonging to the core disciples. The inner and outer gates of the 7 profound gates are divided into 8 main entrances. The outer gates are divided into the Flying Bird Hall, the Treasure Gathering Hall, the Outer Blade Hall, and the Four Seas Hall. The inner gate is divided into Baijuan Hall, Qijua Hall, Worship Hall, and Blood Blade Hall. The most valued and protected one among them is the 7 Extremities Hall. After 3 days of contact, Jiang Chuan knows that the number of core disciples in this Seven Extremities Hall is not many, only about 60 people. The youngest, like oneself, is only 10 years old, while the oldest is 20. Once the age of 20 has passed, one cannot continue to stay in the Seven Extremities Hall, but must be assigned to important positions in other halls. Many high-level officials in the Seven Xuanmen are from the Seven Tang, and it can be said that the future of the Seven Tang is to some extent equivalent to the future of the Seven Xuanmen. Therefore, it is only in the Seven Wonders Hall that one can focus on practicing various superior martial arts without being entangled in worldly affairs. Wearing the newly received black brocade robe, a silver Ju character on the chest looked very sharp, and Jiang Chuan looked left and right, feeling quite suitable. Although there is no fixed rule for the attire of disciples from both the inner and outer gates of the Seven Xuanmen, the disciples who move on the Caixia mountain year-round wear grey clothes, while the internal disciples wear blue clothes. Only the core disciples of Qijue Hall can wear black Ju character brocade clothes, which can also be considered as a symbol of Qijue Hall's identity. As for elders, hall leaders, and so on, there is no requirement. Stepping out of the room, Jiang Chuan planned to go to the Cangong Pavilion to see if there were any martial arts suitable for him. Although Master Wang said he would find an elder from the previous generation to be his master, he still had to go to the Cangong Pavilion to see if there were any suitable martial arts for him. However, before going, Jiang Chuan brought a small amount of scattered silver that his parents had given him when he left the house and headed straight to the cafeteria. The disciples of Qijue Hall have a dedicated canteen, and they can eat at no cost. However, it is limited to meal times, and if they want food at other times, they will have to pay extra. In no time, Jiang Chuan carried a fragrant roasted chicken and walked towards the direction of the Cangong Pavilion. As the core area of the Seven Xuanmen, Cangong Pavilion was well guarded, with 3 steps, 1 post, and 5 steps, 1 whistle. There is a token from the Seven Wonders Hall that leads the way, and Jiang Chuan arrived at the Cangong Pavilion unobstructed. It was not as grand as imagined, but a 2-story attic made of blue stones. Entering the Cangong Pavilion, although no one was seen, Jiang Chuan still bowed and said, "Seven Tang disciple Jiang Chuan, who wants to enter the second floor of the Cangong Pavilion to select martial arts, came to meet Elder Tai." As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, Jiang Chuan felt a gust of bad wind hitting his face. Before he could react, he saw a disheveled old man sitting on the ground not far from him, gnawing on roasted chicken. Jiang Chuan just lowered his head and realized that his hand, which was originally carrying roasted chicken, was already empty. He immediately arched his hand and said, "Young generation, pay respects to Elder Tai." It turned out that before coming to the Cangong Pavilion, Jiang Chuan had already inquired with the senior brothers of the Seven Ju Hall about the guardian of the Cangong Pavilion, Elder Tai. It is said that he is an elder of the older generation, and now he no longer cares about the affairs inside the sect, guarding this Cangong Pavilion year-round. The person's cultivation techniques are unknown, but their skills are profound and unfathomable. They only have one hobby, which is liking to eat chicken butt. That's why Jiang Chuan spent a huge amount of money to buy roasted chicken, in order to seek some advice from Elder Tai. The old man nibbled on the chickens but while saying, "You can do it, kid. Be sensible. Very sensible. It's been a long time since you were such a sensible kid in Qijutang. What kind of martial arts do you want to see on the second floor?" Upon hearing this, Jiang Chuan quickly said. Master Wang said that the roots and bones of the younger generation are very suitable for practicing horizontal cultivation techniques. Therefore, if younger generations want to find a suitable horizontal practice technique in the Cangong Pavilion, they also need to consult Elder Tai. Upon hearing these words, Elder Tai suddenly looked up at the river, followed by a gust of evil wind. Elder Tai had already appeared in front of Jiang Chuan, but when he saw him pinching Jiang Chuan's wrist, ankle, and neck, he immediately retreated and spoke. "TSK, Shao Wang, the leader, has some foresight. You young man, your basic aptitude is very good. The horizontal practice techniques are all located in the northwest corner of the second floor, just go and take a look. For the sake of this chicken butt, I kindly remind you that the thicker the martial arts technique, the more advanced it is. After speaking, Jiang Chuan picked up the chicken butt on his own. Seeing this, he bowed to Elder Tai and then climbed up the second floor of the Tsangong Pavilion. The second floor is filled with a variety of martial arts techniques. Upon closer inspection, the east side features internal mental techniques, the south side features weapon blade moves, the west side features body techniques and martial arts, and the north side features horizontal practice techniques. Jiang Chuan also found a bunch of scattered books in the corner of the weapon moves. Upon closer inspection, it was not exactly the blink of an eye sword technique. However, this blink of an eye sword technique was not the goal of his trip, and even if he wanted to learn it, it was not at present. To the north, various horizontal martial arts are placed on shelves. Unlike ordinary martial arts such as iron cloth shirt, iron crotch skill, and golden bell mask on the first floor, the horizontal martial arts on the second floor are the core martial arts of the Seven Xuanmen, far more advanced than those on the first floor. Names such as Qilin Arm, Heavenly Gang Body, and 100 Refinements Decision are becoming more and more intimidating, and the martial arts are also thicker than one book. But with the reminder of Elder Tai just now, Jiang Chuan also became more vigilant about these bold martial arts skills that intimidate people. Upon closer inspection, it is indeed a silver-like pewter spear head. Although it has some power, it is far from achieving the desired effect in Jiang Chuan's heart. Quickly, Jiang Chuan chose two martial arts techniques among a group of horizontal practice techniques. One was a very thin one called Overlord Armor, and the other was a thinner one called Iron Wall Ju. The martial arts of Overlord Armor have a total of 7 layers, and as its name suggests, it is very domineering. Cultivating to the 7th level can form 2 layers of inner and outer armor around the body, making it invincible and powerful. It can also unleash the called Overlord Power, in a short period of time, making it a top-notch skill in the martial arts world. Jiang Chuan vaguely remembers that 10 years later, Ouyang Feitian, the master of the Jiayuan city dominant villa in Lanzhou, practiced this Overlord Armor. Over the past few years, his power grew rapidly, and although he was killed by Han Laoma with a grey sword talisman, it was still a talisman, indicating that this method was extraordinary. As for the second skill, the Battle of the Iron Wall, Jiang Chuan was even more excited. Without him, this martial art was too unlike secular martial arts. As mentioned in The Iron Wall Decision, when this method is practiced to a great extent, it can not only be impervious to knives and guns, but also withstand water and fire, and achieve the power of a lion. It is said that in ancient times, there was a fierce beast called the Tuyuan lion, which had a powerful force of 1,000 pounds. By completing the Iron Wall technique, it was possible to harden this fierce beast. Jiang Chuan is not ignorant, after all, he often follows his father to sell mountain goods and knows that 1 pound is 30 pounds, and 1,000 pounds is 30,000 pounds, a whole 30,000 pounds. This is simply a humanoid monster. Although there may be suspicions of exaggeration in this kind of cultivation, the power of 10,000 pounds is already a power beyond ordinary people. What excites Jiang Chuan even more is that this cultivation has a total of 13 levels. The 1st to 3rd level is the initial stage, the 4th to 6th level is the middle stage, the 7th to 9th level is the later stage, the 10th to 12th level is the peak, and the 13th level is the great perfection. This is exactly the same as the setting of the Immortal's gas refining period. There is no such coincidence in the world. Immediately, Jiang Chuan couldn't contain his excitement and glanced aside another book, Overlord Armor. Then, excitedly holding the secret script of Iron Wall Battle, he returned to the first floor of the Tsangong Pavilion. Elder Tai watched as Jiang Chuan came down and then asked, "Kid, which horizontal practice technique did you choose? Speak up, I'll see what your vision is." Jiang Chuan asked for advice and immediately said. Report to Elder Tai. The younger generation chose Iron Wall decision. Upon hearing these words, Elder Tai suddenly fell silent. After a moment, he spoke up. Why not choose Overlord Armor? Upon hearing these words, Jiang Chuan keenly sensed that this Iron Elder knew so much about the horizontal practice technique. Perhaps it was the elder from the previous generation who the Wang sect planned to hire as his master, right? Between his words, Jiang Chuan speculated that the old man was likely practicing Overlord Armor, but although his body was not thin, it was not burly, unlike a skilled horizontal practitioner. But for the sake of caution, Jiang Chuan dare not speak ill of Ba Wang Jia, and naturally cannot say that because Iron Wall decision is very similar to the cultivation technique. I can only vaguely say. The younger generation just thinks that Iron Wall Ju has many layers and the records inside are very magical, which may have unexpected effects when practicing. Upon seeing this, Elder Tai seemed to recall something and slowly said. In fact, the martial arts of Iron Wall battle have been acquired by our sect for countless years. It has been more than 100 years just being placed in this hidden skill pavilion. When I first started, this technique was put on the shelf and is still on the shelf today. I am aware that none of my generations, including myself, have ever cultivated this technique since our sect unexpectedly obtained the Iron Wall decision. To be honest with you, I once wanted to practice this method when I was young, but it took me 2.5 years and didn't improve at all. In the end, I had to change to King of Fighters Armor. I am also getting old, and I am interested in finding a successor. I just checked your bones, it's really good. If you are willing to practice Overlord Armor, I can accept you as a closed-door disciple and teach you everything you have learned throughout your life. If you insist on practicing the Iron Wall decision, I will only assume that I have never said it before. Do you still need to practice this method? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Body cultivation techniques during Qi training period. Seeking collection and voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Body cultivation techniques during Qi training period. Seeking collection and voting. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Chuan engaged in a game in his heart, but ultimately refused to give up the slightest hope of immortality. He immediately said, Young generation, thank you very much for Elder Tai's kindness. However, the younger generation still wants to try practicing Iron Wall decision, even if they cannot achieve it, they will never regret it. Upon hearing these words, Elder Tai seemed to have thought of something and immediately burst into laughter, saying, Okay. Ha ha ha. Okay. Good kid. You are just like me when I was young. Same stubbornness. I was unable to complete Iron Wall decision, which is also a regret of my life. I hope you can achieve something. Upon hearing these words, Jiang Chuan also felt the genuine affection of this messy old man and immediately bowed his hand, saying, Thank you very much for your teachings, Elder. I am deeply grateful to you, younger generation. After speaking, Jiang Chuan continued to observe the cultivation method of Iron Wall decision in the Cangong Pavilion, all because the core cultivation method on the second floor cannot be taken away from the Cangong Pavilion. In the following month, Jiang Chuan not only went to the Qijue Hall in the morning to study meridians and acupoints, but also plunged into the Tibetan Martial Arts Pavilion at noon to study the Iron Wall technique. In the evening, he also went to the Qijue Hall to stand a stake and exercise his body. However, Jiang Chuan did not rashly cultivate, but instead tried to understand every word in the Iron Wall Ju technique, and then tried to cultivate it to achieve perfection. On the second day after choosing the Battle of the Iron Wall, Wang, who had worked tirelessly, finally arrived at the Cangong Pavilion at dusk. When he saw Elder Iron, Wang immediately bowed and said, Uncle Iron. How have you been lately? When Elder Tai saw the arrival of Master Wang, he said with great interest. I have seen Master Wang. Why is Master Wang interested in coming to this Cangong Pavilion? Is it because there has been new progress in martial arts? Mr. Wang immediately smiled bitterly and said. Master Tai is joking. Since becoming the leader, I have been plagued by mundane affairs, and my Tiannan heart technique has been stagnant for a long time. My martial arts skills are also stuck in a first-class state, and I have been unable to break through to the level of a top-notch expert for a long time. I came this time because I had a request from Master Tai. The younger generation knows that Master Tai has been practicing Overlord armor for 50 years and is renowned in the martial arts world for his horizontal training techniques. He cannot find a second one among the Seven Xuanmen. This time, during the assessment of the newly appointed disciples of the Seven Profound sect, we found a good seedling suitable for horizontal cultivation. Therefore, we would like to invite Master Tai to come out of the mountain and accept this student as our disciple, so that we can add another top talent to the Seven Profound sect in the future. Upon hearing these words, Elder Tai immediately said. The new disciple mentioned by Master Wang is from Jiangjia, right? Upon hearing this, Master Wang nodded and said, although he did not know how Elder Tai recognized Jiangjia. Not bad. It's this son. Elder Tai recognizes this son. Elder Tai immediately said helplessly. He comes to the Cangong Pavilion every day, how could I not recognize him? However, I didn't have the fate to be his master. This kid didn't want to study Overlord armor, but chose Iron Wall battle. Just like when I was young, he was a stubborn cow. Upon hearing this, Master Wang was not worried and immediately said. The Iron Wall decision is not like the blinking sword technique, which has not been completed by anyone for 100 years. The blinking sword technique has at least been practiced by someone in our sect. Since obtaining it, no one has been able to cultivate it. Although this technique is mysterious, it is mostly fabricated by a martial arts expert and cannot be completed. When Jiang Chuan's cultivation fails, he still needs to come back honestly to practice Overlord armor. If he doesn't, you'll have to come and teach him, Master Tai. Upon hearing these words, Elder Tai seemed to have been stepped on by the tail and immediately said in a strange and sinister tone. Yeah. I came back to study Overlord armor, in a gloomy manner, just like when I was young. Upon seeing the situation, Mr. Wang realized that he had committed a taboo and immediately said. Master Tai, don't blame me. You achieved the pinnacle of your generation when you transferred to Overlord armor, but it is one of the legends of our 7 mysteries. Elder Tai waved his hand and then said. Let's wait for him to practice for a while before we talk. If he can really cultivate Iron Wall decision, I really don't have the qualifications to be his master. A month passed quickly, and Jiang Chuan finally believed that he had figured out every word in the Battle of Iron Walls, and even compared the content of the Overlord armor. The top-notch horizontal cultivation techniques like Overlord armor are not simply refining the body, but rather strengthening the internal and refining the external, complementing each other. If there is no method to strengthen the internal strength and forcibly refine the external, although it can still achieve results, it will inevitably cause great pain and even harm the body. It seems that 10 years later, Dr. Mo asked Zhang Tai to practice the elephant armor technique, which is such a technique. This technique should be incomplete and lacks the techniques of strengthening the inner world, which is why it is so painful. In contrast, the cultivation method of Iron Wall Ju is more advanced, adopting a 3-in-1 approach of concentration, strengthening the inner part and refining the outer part for cultivation. It is very similar to the Dragon Elephant Prajnaparamita, a unique skill of the previous esoteric school. In addition to the physical body, it also requires the strengthening of the divine mind to support the strength of the physical body. Similarly, in terms of strengthening internal strength, Iron Wall Ju and Overlord armor are completely different. Overlord armor is similar to martial arts in the martial arts world, both of which focus on refining the body and generating true qi internally. On the other hand, Iron Wall Ju draws strength from the outside world. This also further confirms Jiang Chuan's conjecture that Iron Wall Ju is a cultivation technique. Only the cultivation technique can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the outside world, and there is a problem of the increasingly scarce spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After everything was figured out, Jiang Chuan began to try to practice Iron Wall Ju. The first step is to settle down, which often has nothing to do with the roots, bones, spirits, and roots. The most important thing is to rely on understanding. It is not impossible for a good understanding to be fully absorbed, while a bad understanding can be difficult to fully comprehend even after 10.5 days. Fortunately, Jiang Chuan worked hard to concentrate and calm down, and after 3 days of repeated attempts, he finally entered a state of calmness. At this moment, Jiang Chuan knew that he must not be excited, otherwise his efforts would be in vain. He immediately held his breath and focused, slowly following the path recorded in Iron Wall Ju, to try to absorb power from the outside world. After an hour, Jiang Chuan finally felt a hint of coolness on his skin merging into his body. In a daze, he seemed to see stars floating around him. 3 hours later, Jiang Chuan slowly opened his eyes, recovered from his composure, and then took a long breath, with an uncontrollable expression of joy on his face. It's done. It's really done. This power is clearly different from the internal skill True Qi recorded in Overlord Armor, as if it contains vitality. The flow of this power can give people a sense of intelligence in their ears and eyes. It seems that I have some immortal fate, and this Iron Wall decision is definitely the immortal family's cultivation method, as well as the immortal family's horizontal practice method, or in other words, the method of physical cultivation. From this perspective, it is certain that one possesses spiritual roots, and according to the attributes of Iron Wall Ju, it should be a metallic martial art. Although I don't know how many spiritual roots I have, I must possess a golden spiritual root. Otherwise, I would be unable to cultivate like the disciples of the Seven Xuanmen who have chosen the Iron Wall technique throughout history. No wonder no one has been able to complete Iron Wall decision. Among these 7 mystical sects, there are very few disciples who choose to practice horizontally, and none of the disciples who have chosen to practice this method for 100 years have spiritual roots. Perhaps there are those with spiritual roots, but without a golden spiritual root, one cannot cultivate at all. Upon learning that he possessed spiritual roots, Jiang Chuan felt a big stone fall to the ground in his heart. He immediately worked hard to cultivate Iron Wall Ju in the following days. At the same time, Jiang Chuan couldn't help but think of the body of the poisonous dragon buried on Xiaolianzi mountain in his hometown. Before leaving Jiangjia village, Jiang Chuan secretly went to inspect it once and discovered that the poisonous dragon might have used some means before dying. Insects, ants, and wild beasts dare not approach, and no breath will be emitted. They will definitely not be discovered by others. After their own cultivation is successful, it cannot be said that this will become a huge cultivation resource for themselves. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. A first look at the path, seeking collections and voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 7. 3 layers of Qi cultivation, seeking collections and voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. 3 layers of Qi cultivation, seeking collections and voting. Spring has passed and autumn has arrived, and 6 months have passed quickly. During these 6 months, Jiang Chuan successfully cultivated the second layer of the Iron Wall technique to a perfect state. In addition to his height rising, his physical strength has also exceeded that of 1,000 pounds. Under the test of Jiang Chuan, ordinary swords are almost unable to cut their own skin, and only some divine weapons in the martial arts world can threaten them. The second level is just perfect, almost comparable to the ultimate effect of the secular top-notch hard skill, Overlord Armor. Therefore, from this perspective, Iron Wall Decision is truly an immortal martial art. In the training room exclusively for disciples of the 7 Ju Hall, Jiang sits cross-legged on a cattail, with his 5 hearts facing the sky, operating the Iron Wall decision. Just a year ago, when he first saw the way, his spiritual power, like a strand of hair, has now grown to the thickness of the grass roots and is even better in quality. At this moment, Jiang is controlling the spiritual power in his body to impact the acupoints between the Yangming intestine meridian of the upper limbs and the Tiannan spleen meridian of the lower limbs. The Iron Wall Ju follows the 12 meridians as the path of practice, by opening up 12 meridians including the hand 3 yin, hand 3 yang, foot 3 yin, and foot 3 yang, and finally converging at Haifu to complete the 13 layers. The 12 meridians correspond to 1 yin and 1 yang. In order to maintain the balance of the body, the Iron Wall Ju also practices in a 1 yin and 1 yang manner. The first layer corresponds to the upper limb Tiannan lung meridian, the second layer corresponds to the upper limb Yangming intestinal meridian, the third layer corresponds to the lower limb Tiannan spleen meridian, and the fourth layer corresponds to the lower limb Yangming stomach meridian. Then, by sequentially unblocking the Jian heart meridian, Shaoyang jiao meridian, Jian liver meridian, Shaoyang gallbladder meridian, Shaoyin heart meridian, Taiyang intestine meridian, Shaoyin kidney meridian, and Taiyang cystine meridian, the spiritual power of the 12 main meridians of the body is finally concentrated in the lower abdomen of Haifu, transforming qi into liquid and achieving foundation building. Now Jiang has opened up the upper limb Tiannan lung meridian and upper limb Yangming intestine meridian, and is fully attacking the acupoints of the lower limb Tiannan spleen meridian. Once the spiritual power in the body rushes into the Tiannan spleen meridian, Jiang will break through the third layer. Under the control of Jiang, the spiritual power within the Yangming intestine meridian is constantly compressed, and the resulting power is not short and strong. Time and time again, it is like waves pounding the acupoints of the Tiannan spleen meridian. Half a day later, as the spiritual power was compressed to a certain extent, with the slight swelling of the Yangming intestine meridian, the surging spiritual power finally broke through the critical orifice and flowed into the Tiannan spleen meridian. At the same time, it also announced that Jiang had successfully broken through the third layer of the qi refining period. After entering the third layer, one's 5 senses, physical strength, and physical strength have been further enhanced. It is expected that it will not be long before one can resist any ordinary divine weapon. Furthermore, even low-level magical tools will definitely be able to resist it. And in the Iron Wall decision, there is also a record of the 5 elements refining method for refining the flesh body, which can greatly stimulate the potential of the flesh body. Under the trinity of concentration, strengthening the inner body, and refining the outer body, one can truly cultivate a flesh body that can be used as a hard steel immortal family artifact. However, this cultivation method is extremely cruel and cannot be practiced until the third level of qi cultivation is reached. Only after entering the third level can one engage in cultivation. Stepping out of the practice room, I looked at the distant and close views of Caixia Mountain, all covered in silver. Unconsciously, it had been a year since Jiang arrived at the 7 profound gates. To sum up, the eldest brother's family at the foot of the mountain should have already been born, and I suddenly became an uncle at the age of 11. The disciples of the Seven Xuanmen sect cannot go down the mountain until they have completed their studies. This is also a way for the Seven Xuanmen sect to cultivate loyalty and a sense of belonging by allowing these disciples to grow in the sect for many years. For a year, Jiang had been busy practicing and had never thought of leaving Caixia Mountain. In 1 year, he was able to cultivate to the third level of the qi refining period without any external help. This result left Jiang quite satisfied. In addition, during this year, Jiang also gained a deeper understanding of the 7 Xuanmen in 7 Jutang. As the saying goes, wherever there are people, there is the martial arts world. The 7 Xuanmen, a martial arts sect that has been passed down for hundreds of years, naturally cannot be underestimated. The most powerful sect leaders nowadays are the king sect leader and the deputy sect leader Ma. In terms of cultivation, both of them are top-notch and have not reached the pinnacle. In terms of qualifications, Vice Sect Leader Ma has been serving as the Vice Sect Leader for 10 years. When the current King's Sect Leader is still a disciple of the Seven Ju Hall, he has already been the Blood Blade Hall Leader. However, in terms of background, the head of the royal sect is already the legitimate descendant of the Seven Ju Venerable. The Wang family also holds many important positions in the Seven Xuanmen. Although the Ma family, where the deputy head of the sect is located, has been in the Seven Xuanmen for nearly 100 years, it cannot compare to the Wang family. Therefore, the head of the royal sect was able to ascend to the position of the head of the sect. However, many other sect leaders and protectors in the sect had already been dissatisfied with the Wang family's control over the Seven Profound Gates, which gradually led to the situation where Deputy Head Ma and the head of the royal sect competed in the Seven Profound Gates. A more important factor is that only one of the three elders from the previous generation who broke through the pinnacle in the sect came from the Wang family and stood as the leader of the royal sect. The other two, although not facing the deputy head of the Ma sect, also had some criticisms of the Wang family's control over the Seven Profound Gates. These struggles even spread to the Seven Extremities Hall where Jiangchuan was located. Among the top four of the Seven Extremities Hall, Wang Yicheng, who ranked second, was a member of the Wang family. He was only 18 years old and had a swift and extraordinary soft sword, and Jiao Yan, who ranked third, was the disciple of Vice Sect Leader Ma. He was also 18 years old and skilled in wielding a long spear, with impressive martial arts skills. As for Chen Qing, who ranks first, and Shi Lei, who ranks fourth, there is no faction. They both come from outside the mountains. Chen Qing is already 19 years old and skilled in wielding hidden-back double swords. He is the only disciple of the Seven Ju Tang who has broken through the first class standard and is the head of the Seven Ju Tang. Shi Lei, on the other hand, is a skilled horizontal practitioner who is skilled in using a double mace. Among the four, he is the youngest, only 17 years old. Of course, all of this must be based on not including Jiangchuan. Jiangchuan estimated that although he practiced immortal martial arts and could not be classified according to secular martial arts, with the blessing of ghost-shadow separation, blinking sword technique and many marksmanships, when it comes to combat power, he is at least a top-notch expert, but still lacks a lot of combat experience. This year's cultivation in Jiangchuan has been dull, but some people can't sit still. This person is the Iron Elder who has been thinking of taking Jiangchuan as his disciple. It seems that a year has already passed. Elder Tai felt that he couldn't wait any longer. If Jiangchuan continued to spend time on techniques like Iron Wall Ju, that were impossible to achieve results, he would waste such a good seedling in vain. After a year, Jiangchuan was finally approached by Elder Tai and immediately spoke frankly. "Boy, in a year's time, you should have realized that it is impossible to complete Iron Wall battle. If you continue to delay, you will miss the best age to practice martial arts. I would like to ask you one last time if you are willing to learn from me and practice Overlord armor. With your qualifications and time, you can achieve unparalleled success and dominate the world without any problem." Jiangchuan looked at this usually messy old man who seemed to have washed his face for the first time today, and couldn't help but feel a hint of humor and warmth. Listening to the pancakes he had drawn for himself, Jiangchuan smiled and said, "Don't worry, Iron Elder. I dare to ask you to give me a punch, and then I promise to accept my apprenticeship no later. Dear fellow Taoists, let's take a walk with the recommended tickets." The coded characters are painful in the neck. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Collecting apprentices on behalf of teachers, seeking collection and voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator. Chapter 9. Deterrence, seeking collection and voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Deterrence, seeking collection and voting. The elder Qingyi saw countless hidden weapons about to attack Jiangchuan, and he had released them without any way to retrieve them. He was afraid that if he seriously injured them, it would be difficult to explain to Elder Tai. He immediately shouted, Kid, quickly dodge. However, under the watchful eyes of the public, Jiang Chuan's blood and energy flowed throughout his body, and Iron Wall Decision was executed to its extreme. The sound of ping.pong could only be heard incessantly, with countless hidden weapons falling on the ground, and many of them even shattering cracks in the ground. On the other hand, Jiang Chuan stood unscathed in the same place, except for some damaged black clothes. Elder Qingyi Wang was shocked and said, "Is this the power of Iron Wall Battle? At such an age, it's really scary." On the other hand, Jiang Chuan saw that these hidden weapons could no longer harm him, so he no longer hesitated. His blood and energy burst out, dispersing all the remaining hidden weapons. At this moment, Elder Nya in grey clothes launched a sword attack, with a silver sword that seemed to have the power to cut through gold and stones. Jiang Chuan dared not easily use his physical body to forcefully strike, and also planned to try his marksmanship. He immediately used both hands and a long spear to fight against Elder Nye's long sword. In fact, Jiang Chuan does not have any advanced marksmanship in essence. Instead, based on those few marksmanship moves, he uses his strong physical strength and transcendent five senses to unleash basic moves such as stabbing, picking, sweeping, smashing, and teasing to the extreme. His speed, strength, and reaction ability are impeccable. The long sword and spear collided continuously in the air. Elder Nye's swordsmanship was that one sword was faster than the other, almost appearing as a shadow. Jiang Chuan's spear was also in opposition, blocking Elder Nye's long sword 7 feet in front of him. As Elder Nye swung his strongest sword, Jiang Chuan also slammed down his spear with great force, only to hear a loud bang. Wang, the leader, covered his ears in pain, and Elder Nye's sword flew out. Jiang Chuan's spear also broke to the ground. But seeing Elder Nye take a few steps back from behind, he said, "The younger generation is terrifying, the younger generation is terrifying." It seems that Elder Tai's act of accepting apprentices as a substitute teacher is still wise. Otherwise, if such experts become disciples, how would we have the face to serve as elders after receiving the recognition of the two elders? The ceremony of receiving apprentices as a substitute teacher officially began. Jiang Chuan and Elder Tai stood together in the middle of the ancestral master hall, lighting 3 pillars of high incense. Then, under the witness of Elder Nye in grey clothes, Elder Wang in green clothes, and Master Wang, they began to recruit disciples on behalf of the teacher. But I saw Elder Tai kneeling and saying, "Disciple Tai San Shan, the current master who accepts disciples from Jiang Chuan, is the 32nd generation disciple of the Seven Xuanmen sect." Jiang Chuan also saluted and said, "Disciple Jiang Chuan, pay respects to our ancestors throughout history." Mr. Wang was by the side and spoke loudly. "Li Cheng." Later, Master Wang smiled at Jiang Chuan and said, "After this generation of apprenticeship, Jiang Chuan brothers have become my junior martial uncle. What a coincidence. I can't say that the 7 profound schools will grow stronger in the future under the protection of the little master uncle." The words of Master Wang are not unfounded. Master Wang and most of the current elders are the 33rd generation disciples. Some protectors are also 34th generation disciples, and Jiang Chuan, as the youngest among the 32nd generation disciples of the Seven Xuanmen sect, is not just the junior martial uncle of the Wang sect leader. However, Master Wang does not care about this matter. After all, this young master is on his side and will greatly benefit the future growth of the 7 profound schools. Master Wang would not be disturbed by such vulgar etiquette. Jiang Chuan also bowed and said, "Master Wang, you're laughing. In the future, I still need to meditate and practice at the 7 profound gates. If you have any instructions, you can speak." After receiving his apprentices, Jiang Chuan transformed into a high-level official in the 7 profound gates, which naturally caused a huge uproar among them. Numerous core disciples, protectors, and even elders are infuriated and want to seek an explanation from the sect leader. The deputy sect leader Ma even took the opportunity to encourage a large group of disciples to intimidate the sect leader Wang, and Jiang Chuan naturally made some reciprocation. Above the main hall of the 7 profound gates, 3 elders from the previous generation sat in the rear, while the Wang sect leader sat above the middle main seat. Below were the Ma deputy sect leader, Chen deputy sect leader, and a group of sect leaders and elders. However, they saw those sect leaders and elders talking incessantly. Why make a novice young man become a 32nd generation disciple and even an elder? It's just a joke. Yeah. This is just bullshit. I have been practicing martial arts for 20 years, and I am only a protector. Why should I make him an elder? I have killed enemies and blocked knives for the 7 Xuanmen sect, and have also made remarkable military achievements in the Blood Blade Hall. Until now, he's just a deputy hall master. Why should he be an elder? This servant doesn't even deserve to lift our shoes. Mr. Wang couldn't help but furrow his brows as he listened to these noises, which to some extent meant that his prestige in the 7 Xuanmen was almost in a dispensable state. Especially the ones who jumped the most happily are all members of the Ma deputy sect, which makes Wang's sect very unhappy. At this moment, Vice President Ma stood up as if he had a deep grudge and spoke with great care. He pressed his hands lightly and said in a deep voice. "All right. Everyone, be quiet. I and Master Wang have already understood everyone's thoughts. Don't worry, everyone. I thought today's matter was just and just. Can a furry boy become the elder of my 7 profound gates? In terms of qualifications, everyone present is a senior expert. In terms of achievements, everyone has made great contributions to the sect. In terms of strength, everyone is also a skilled expert. Anyway, no matter how old his qualifications are or how strong his roots are, it is not a reason for him to do anything in vain. A young and inexperienced kid never want to sit on the position of elder." Upon hearing these words, Master Wang and Elder Tai couldn't help but furrow their brows. Vice Master Ma's sarcastic remarks were not difficult for everyone present to hear. Jiang Chuan watched with great interest the performance of Deputy Leader Ma, and then looked at the 4 members of Leader Wang. Seeing them nodding slightly, he immediately understood. If Vice Leader Ma continues to speak, I'm afraid he will say that the virtue of Wang is not worthy of his position. Jiang Chuan understands that it's time to appear on his own. Suddenly, a sudden burst of applause rang out, and everyone fixed their eyes on Jiang Chuan sitting in the hall. Well said. Vice Leader Ma is really sharp and eloquent. If one day you lose your martial arts skills, perhaps you can still rely on storytelling to make a living. Vice Leader Ma immediately became furious. Kid, what are you talking about? Just before he could finish speaking, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. With a loud bang, the deputy head of the horse flew out. When it fell to the ground, it was discovered that its neck had already turned 2.5 times, and its head had collapsed halfway. It was already dead and could no longer die. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Such body power cannot be achieved by a top-notch expert. Immediately, Jiang Chuan appeared again in front of the most arrogant deputy head of the Blood Blade Hall who had just called out, and asked with a smile. Has that person surnamed Ma always said so much? At this moment, the deputy master who licked blood with his blade was already stuttering with fear. Thinking that his second-rate martial arts might be even worse than the death of the deputy master Ma, he immediately nodded trembling and shook his head in fear. Upon seeing the situation, Jiang Chuan patted his shoulder with satisfaction, and then rubbed back onto his seat in his frightened eyes. He then waved his hand and said, "All right, there are no more people causing the problem now. Do you still have any questions?" As Jiang Chuan looked around the crowd, the guardians of the Dharma Hall in the main hall all lowered their heads, but dared not look directly at Jiang Chuan. Upon seeing this, Mr. Wang immediately said, "From now on, everyone, Jiang Chuan will become the elder of our sect. If there's nothing to do, let's go our separate ways." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. 5 Elements Refining Method, Seeking Collection and Voting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. 5 Elements Refining Method, Seeking Collection and Voting. In the next 3 days, the Seven Xuanmen sect began a reshuffle of power, and the Ma deputy sect was quickly cleared, ultimately resulting in a death run and escape injury. Even the family members of Vice Leader Ma were annihilated by the Blood Blade Hall Vice Leader who was eager to join, and they couldn't care about any major taboos in the martial arts world about changing the sect for a while. It could be considered as a pledge to join the Wang sect. Fortunately, Master Wang still had the necessary skills. Between 3 strikes and 5 divisions, the turmoil in the 7 profound gates was eliminated invisibly. In this game, Jiangjia gained a unique position among the 7 mysteries, not only able to cultivate better, but also paved the way for his own plan. And the leader Wang also gained a tightly united 7 profound gates around him, and even some of the 7 profound gates protectors, deputy hall leaders, and so on took the opportunity to rise to power. Overall, it seems that only Deputy Leader Ma was the loser in the whole game, all due to his erroneous estimation of the situation. He did not expect that Jiangjia would have such terrifying combat power, nor did he expect that the 2 top-notch elders, Nie Ping and Tai Sanshan, would stand on the side of Leader Wang this time. In the following time, Jiangjia gained great convenience in the 7 profound gates. Under his strong demands, he was finally able to get along with the protectors, hall masters, and others in the sect. Originally, in order to cultivate with the help of the 5 elements cultivation method in Iron Wall Decision, in order to rapidly increase cultivation, under the strong demand of Jiangjia, the 7 Xuanmen established a new system. All the protectors, deputy leaders, elders, and leaders inside the sect must regularly return to the sect to report their work, which is actually a test of the progress of martial arts. The method of testing is to attack Jiangjia with all one's might on the arena set up in Jiangjia, until exhausted. Originally, the people inside the door were very reluctant and felt that doing so would cause a lot of trouble for their own family. But gradually, the crowd discovered that these guardians of the Dharma Hall could not only fully utilize their unique skills when attacking Jiangjia, but also afterwards. Jiangjia could always give them some insightful insights about their respective moves and techniques, which greatly benefited everyone. This is certainly due to the super strong 5 senses that Jiangjia possesses through practicing the cultivation technique of Iron Wall Ju. Whenever one can detect the flaws and shortcomings in the moves of others, they should provide some correction, mainly to stimulate their enthusiasm to attack themselves. Gradually, Jiangjuan's prestige among the 7 Xuanmen reached a certain height, and everyone went from their original fear with a slight disgust to their worship of the strong. After all, looking at Jiangjia, which can still be unscathed under the relentless attacks of others, not everyone can resist the visual impact. This is certainly not because Jiangjia has a tendency to be abused, but rather because of the requirement of the golden element refining method, in the 5 elements refining method of the Iron Wall Decision. The so-called Jin Xing Lian Fa refers to the practice of using various gold weapons to attack and beat the body, while gradually absorbing the Jin Xing Qi from it, to cultivate the physical body to an invincible level. In addition, there are other 4-element cultivation methods that are also unconventional, but the overall effect is indeed obvious. After using the 5-element cultivation method, the growth rate of one's own cultivation is much faster than ordinary meditation and transportation of the great Zhou Tian, and the foundation is also more solid. On this day, Jiangjia completed his Golden Xing refining method in the 7 Ju Hall, and then left the hall in a group of mournful cries, arriving alone in a stone chamber to begin today's Fire Xing refining method. As the name suggests, in order to complete the fire practice method, one must withstand the scorching flames. Therefore, Jiangjia specially ordered his disciples to build such a special stone chamber. The stone chamber is divided into 2 layers, with an interlayer in the middle. The outer layer has many windows, while the inner layer only has 1 door. The disciples inside the door continuously add red charcoal fire from the outer window into the interlayer of the stone chamber. As the charcoal fire burned, the interior of the stone chamber also reached a state of unbearable roasting that ordinary people could not bear, which was exactly what Jiangjia needed. I saw him naked on his upper body, revealing his strong muscles. Then he slowly walked into the stone chamber, closed the stone door, and began the fire exercise method. As the temperature of the stone chamber continued to rise, Jiangchuan's skin also felt a burning sensation from the outside to the inside. At this point, the spiritual power inside the body began to rapidly move along the path of the iron wall technique, and the river was red and plump. With the nourishment of spiritual power and specific path of practice, the physical body gradually became solid. I have been using the 5 elements refining method for half a year now, and my spiritual power has also accumulated to the peak of the 3rd layer of qi cultivation. However, Jiangchuan knows that there is still far from enough for me to break through. Because as a physical cultivation technique, Iron Wall Ju is different from ordinary qi refining techniques. Ordinary qi refining techniques can attempt to break through the realm after accumulating spiritual power to a certain extent and nourishing the divine soul. For physical cultivation, reaching the standard of spiritual power is only one of the conditions for breaking through. Only when the spiritual consciousness, spiritual power, and physical body meet the standard can one break through, which is also the reason why physical cultivation is difficult. In the absence of any spells to cultivate, Jiangchuan only focused on practicing Iron Wall Decision with good intentions. Fortunately, I don't have any crisis to deal with at the moment, and my combat power is sufficient to handle any current situation. Magic can be found and practiced any time in the future, but if one's cultivation is delayed, it will not be worth the loss. Under the torment of the 5 elements refining method, Jiangchuan's physical strength has reached 2,000 pounds. In the secular world, except for a few unique divine weapons, there are no weapons that can harm oneself. To some extent, Jiangchuan has almost turned himself into a defense tool, but this defense tool is still in a very low level state. After roasting in the red flame stone chamber for 2 hours, Jiangchuan shook the stone door and walked out, ending the fire refining method. However, after that, there were also water refining method and earth refining method waiting for him. The water exercise method, as the name suggests, is to dive into deep water, use powerful water pressure and closed breath to stimulate the limits of the body, and strengthen the physical body with the combination of spiritual power and martial arts. The earth element refining method adopts the method of burying oneself alive to stimulate one's potential underground. Overall, the 5 element refining method is becoming increasingly evil. Although the effect is very good, it also makes Jiangchuan happy and painful, so Jiangchuan often self-deprecatingly refers to these refining methods as water punishment refining method, fire punishment refining method, and so on. If the 4-element cultivation method of gold, water, fire, and soil is still considered conventional, then the wood element cultivation method can truly be called evil and supernatural. It is not a method of tormenting oneself, but a way of seizing vitality for cultivation. This method requires searching for many spiritual plants containing vitality, and by seizing the vitality of these spiritual plants, the practitioner can strengthen their own vitality. Unfortunately, Jiangchuan almost turned the Caixia mountain of the 7 profound gates upside down, and only found a century-old ginseng growing in the soil and an ancient tree that is unknown for many years. However, Jiangchuan sat in front of the mountain ginseng and ancient trees and used the wooden refining method from Iron Wall Decision to seize the whole day, but could not regain any vitality. It seems that this ordinary plant does not meet the requirements of the wooden refining method. But this Caixia mountain has been developed by the 7 Xuanmen for more than 100 years. Nowadays, there are not many wild rabbits on the mountain, let alone any spiritual plants. It is fortunate to find a 100-year-old ginseng. Helpless, Jiangchuan had no choice but to put aside the wood xing refining method and focus on practicing the other 4 refining methods. I'm looking for some collection and recommendation tickets, but it seems like I can't get a monthly ticket yet. End of this chapter.